here.
Your Majesty, please, all these people.
Oh, that's not a problem. How are people going to react to blending the two worlds? Why, you're going for the big question at the top. I think a lot of people will, like me personally, would find it cool, and here's why. So I grew up with Bewitched. I've been doing Bewitched Continued, and I just love the whole magical world. I love magical worlds, plural. I love Harry Potter. I love Bewitched. I've talked about that before. I love Twilight. I love Merlin. I love watching that kind of fantasy, magical stuff, and even reading that kind of stuff. So, when you think about it, let's say, in this case, I love Bewitched and I love Harry Potter. So both of these realms exist in my head somewhere. So at some point, I think maybe subconsciously, whatever, you got to marry the two. You got to find out how they might come together. And that's kind of what we do. I'm not saying that's what we set out to do. But if we're going to talk about magic, you can't really ignore the biggest magical realm that exists in today's world when you're doing this retro look at an older magical realm that still very much exists for many people. So let's just assume they both exist. They coexist. Is it good? Is it bad? Is there friction? Is there cooperation? Is there a little bit of both? So I know it's not like we got that deep into it, but that is the reality, I think, of what goes on in my head and a lot of people's head. I love Harry Potter. I love Bewitched. Do I just pretend that they're two separate things? Cool. Or can I find a way to marry them together? So that's what we did. But I still have to say, it's called Bewitched Continued. So we lean toward the bewitching tradition. That's the sound effect, that's the tone, that's what we're imitating, because it's that whole bewitching world continued, what the whole point is about. But we're going to acknowledge the Harry Potter world. So, like there's a floating camera thing that's reminiscent of the quill that writes in the air. We actually use the actual time turner as part of the storyline. So we put that there. All right, look, here's what happened.
In your robes, please.
My what?
Please dress in your robes for your official testimony.
Okay, look. Why don't I just come there and...
This is fine.
And as a matter of fact, you might find this interesting. The king, I'll just say the king in case you haven't seen it, hadn't had a wardrobe yet. Actually, neither did the prince, but that's another story. But the king was very specifically that costume designed to be more Harry Potter-ish. Now, as an actor, I hated it, wearing it, not because it had anything to do with Harry Potter-ish, but I just felt like a total fool. You'll see, I look like a total idiot in it. But yet it's cool, okay? But yet it's not Harry Potter-ish, because the Queen, like Queen Samantha for Bewitched, kind of was in all white. So we thought, well, maybe that's kind of that tradition we have to set, so he has to be in all white, the king. Here. I'm just another prince. I'll blend. I'm coming. Yeah, I did get to wear some pretty cool costumes, but I got to tell you, in television or movies, because I've been around it for a long time, unless the script says it's cold, or the script says it's raining, or the script says it's hot, there's an assumption that everything's perfect, 72 degrees. Everything's perfect. Well, of course, when you're shooting it, it never is. It rarely is. Even if you're inside, a lot of times studios are freezing, or depending on the lights, you could be so hot. Okay, so in this case, it was so hot when we were shooting. We only got through one page on that first day, where I'm sitting at the piano, and you'll notice that palms are swaying, because we had to have a fan on me, which is a huge no-no for microphones, but we couldn't shoot it otherwise. It was like the middle of the summer, super, super hot outside, super, super humid outside, and you may know, even in winter when it's super cold outside, you could have the heat at 90 degrees, you still feel cold. That's how this was. And then you have to factor in makeup, hair, which are my two least favorite things about this whole process. if I could do this without makeup and hair, I'd probably do it a lot more. Being wired with microphones on the inside that you can't see, and really, really, really hot costumes. Now at that piano I'm not, but eventually I am in the, the painting costume, the Meryl's wizarding costume, and it's like 5 layers. One of those layers is winter coat-like. It has big fur all around. So yeah, we had to just take breaks for everyone to cool off, but mostly me. Not because I said, oh, I have to cool off, but you just don't look good when you're sweating like a pig, because no one's assuming that it's hot. Everyone's assuming it's perfect. Okay, blue. Still there? So what did I like most about it? Well, how about if I answer that, what do I like most about it? And that is seeing the final product. Because when you're shooting it, you just feel like an idiot. I don't know how else to say it. So, there's supposed to be this like floating camera thing, which will make sense when you see it, and I'm talking to it, and I'm dodging it, and I'm batting at it, and doing all this stuff, but there's nothing there. So when you're doing it, as much as you're trying to be in character and trying to do good at it, you feel like a fool, and you think there's no way this is going to look good, and then you look at it, and it's like, wow, that is so cool. It's just amazing what they can do today.
Bye.
What's the biggest challenge? So this one and the first episode are basically one-man shows where it's just Meryl, me. When you have a whole cast, and you're playing off of other people, it's a whole different ball game because you're playing off their energy. You're kind of building stuff together. You're playing off their energy before you even start shooting, editing, putting it all together. As an actor, you do have to be aware, you're supposed to, where your hands are, where you're looking, and that kind of stuff, so scenes cut together, and other people are watching for that too. But when it's a one-man show like this, so in other words, if I'm doing a scene with somebody in the field, as I say, there's a guy there and I'm here. I say my piece and the camera cuts to him, and I say my piece because these things are all one camera shoots, right? It's not like live or TV or sitcom TV where there's cameras everywhere. There's one camera and they just keep moving it and changing the lighting, and that's why it takes so long. So the camera's on me, yada, 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 yada. Then the camera moves over there, they change the lighting, and that person's yada, yada, yada. So it doesn't have to match perfectly. But if I'm going yada, 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 I have to remember that I'm looking right there and my hands are like this, so that when they take that camera and move it over there, I can go and yada, 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 or it won't match. So that adds a whole different realm of challenge in answer to your question as an actor to put it all together.
Please continue.
All right. It all started early this morning. I woke up, grabbed my phone. Yeah, I've been doing this for a long time. It's interesting because talking about moving lighting and stuff, I started doing this like magazine show, and I quickly went into television news. And people think they're the same. They have absolutely nothing in common. That's why if you notice in movies, they're terrible at playing news anchors, and news anchors are terrible at actors, and that's my case. I'm more of a news anchor for my training, and I'm a terrible actor. I'm just saying, I'm not good. I'm just not good. I do the best I can. But when you're a news anchor, like, it's one set, the lighting's the same every day. You literally, like, seconds before you're on. At least I did. You go sit down, you do the news, you get up and you walk away. And you're done, and it's all live. It's, an hour and you're done. That is so not the case here. Because aside from the fact that you're playing a character and there's a lot more to the hair and the makeup and the wardrobe and a script, they're not your words, they're someone else's words that you're trying to make your words and sell it and all that stuff. And there's a million more people involved in TV and film than in TV news. Actually, these days, the TV news and a lot of TV, there's not even anyone there. All the cameras are robots and stuff. There's people in the back, but there's just robot camera going and someone talking in your ear. Where this case, there's everyone standing around. Not this show. It's not like we had a million people, but like I've done A-list movies and I've done A-list television, and it's a whole different thing. And it just takes. There's a lot more to it, and it takes a lot more time. So the two worlds are very different in terms of the the news you see on TV. and they're doing dramatic stuff. Okay, yes, look, not only did she freeze the royal bird of Carpathia, but when I demanded she unfreeze it and leave, she raised her hands to cast a spell on me. On me! The future. So, actually, you know, while you're asking about the future, I get so many questions about the sound effects. The sound effects. Where'd you get the sound effects? They're just lifted off old Bewitched shows. So today, everything's digital, and this file, that file, this file, and there's layers, and you can actually see them in stripes, you know, if you know anything about editing. Back then, everything was mixed together on tape, and while they could have tracks and did have tracks, it's not like they saved that stuff. Like, for example, when you take a movie, do a movie today, okay, in English, and then they set it to be dubbed in Spanish, they can literally just take out the talking, all the sound effects, all the background music, the footsteps, everything's there. They just take out the voice, okay? So you could do that. And if that were the case today, then we would have just the pure, let's say, sound effect of zing, but we don't. All we have are the actual episodes. So you got to find where those rare instances where someone's going zing, but no one's talking over it, there's not a laugh track going over it, and go, oh, I got it, you take it, you just lift it out. So that's where the sound effects come from. It's not like there's a CD or something that you can buy. We just lift them out of an episode that you can get on YouTube or anywhere. The event. I just told you what happened.
Hold out your hand, please.
What?
Your hand, please. Do you know what that is?
Of course I know what it is. It's a time turner. Oh, you asked about the future. Well, this is a lot of work. I've said it before. I'll say it again. There's no other way to say it. There's just so much work that goes into making these and shooting these. You know, pre-production you can take as long as you're right. Take your time reading a script. Take your time getting costumes. Take your time casting, whatever it is. But when you start shooting, it's just super caffeine intense, you know, because there's lights and cameras and people and everyone's gathered to do it. So you just go, it's go time, you know, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. There's just no other way of saying it. It just takes a lot. So I don't know about the next ones. And Meryl's getting a little old, you know, like Samantha. And I know people are going to hate when I say that, but, you know, let's face it. I think her character is supposed to be 21 or 22. I don't remember exactly on the first season. Then she ages a year. But I think in real life she was 30, if I remember, or in her early 30s. Someone can correct me on here. And then, you know, how many seasons did it run? 7, 8, whatever. Can't believe I'm forgetting this stuff. You know. Now she's 38, 39. It doesn't look 21 anymore. So that's my problem. Hey, the bird. Hey, the bird. Tribunal. If you remember, with Bewitched Continued, when it started, the decision was made not to use a major character from the Bewitched show. You know, like Darren or Samantha or Tabitha or Andorra, because when you're doing that, it's not even really a spin-off. It's like Bewitched Continued, like we did. There's so much history. I think it's really hard to see another actor playing someone who it's ingrained in your head what they look like. You know how they switch actors sometimes? Bewitched being the most famous example of all time. It's not like people won't get used to it, but in this case, when you're doing a spin-off, it was decided to just lift someone who had a little tiny role, but who was part of that world, and then you could just create a whole history and create everything about them. And that was Meryl's case. Meryl was a kid in one episode that Samantha was babysitting. I think it was either the first, well, she was pregnant. I think that's the second season, pregnant as, I think she was pregnant in real life and in the show. So we took that one kid from that one episode who was named Meryl, and then just, that's what the Bewitched Continued is all about. Now he's grown up and he decided he wants to be like his aunt Samantha, and he's just going to carry on in that tradition of living in the mortal world. In this case, he's a lot more than just another warlock. I don't want to give that away. So, and yes, there will be people who go, oh, come on, isn't that taking a little bit of liberties? Yeah, it's actually taking a lot of liberties. But, so again, we had to marry the Harry Potter world and the bewitching world. So who would have access to the Harry Potter world other than, oh, now I'm giving it away, right? Other than the ruler of the bewitching world. Ba-da-da-bum. You have to watch it. Yeah, some people are going to say, oh, please, come on. But yeah. It's just, you know, it's just what we do.
Checking my email, walk downstairs. What do I see? A black cat in the middle of my living room.
In the Bewitched episode, it was always frustrating to me when I was a kid watching it, because I loved it when Samantha was queen, but it was just a couple episodes and then it just stopped. I don't remember an episode where they explained that away. Just one time, 1 minute she wasn't. I think maybe they referred to it in a script several episodes later. I hated that. I loved when she was queen, but now, being in this industry, you know, when you're queen and you're all powerful, there's not a lot of tension going on, right? There can be, obviously, but it's just a lot easier and people identify with, which is a lot of secret to the script. When the audience identifies with the character, it's a lot harder to identify with the queen or king than it is with Joe Schmo.
And she says, yes. So I say, what official ministry business? And she says, just official ministry business.
The whole Minerva McGonagall thing was exactly kind of like the premise for Bewitched Continued. So we wanted to step into that world. And you know, you kind of have to do that through people and good script writing anyway, or there's nothing to connect with. And if we used a main character like Harry or Ron or Hermione or even Professor Dumbledore or somewhere like that, it's just much easier to not do a primary character. So we did, even though she's a way bigger character than we chose, she's identifiable enough, and there's no history, we don't know background history with her, at least that I know of, from Harry Potter. So, and she's just a doll. She's just a cheeseball doll. And yeah, that's right. That's what she is. You know, in those 60s shows, they always use cheeseball dolls. And it's not like we were trying to imitate the cheeseball doll 60 shows, but, you know, Maggie Smith just wasn't available for the shoot. No, it's, you know, we just talk about her mostly. And that's part of the story, is that we don't really, we get only one side of the story, which is where the tension comes from. But yeah, we got the, she's very much a part of the story from the title of this episode to the storyline, but she doesn't have to be in it much. So at the end of the day, I think it worked out.
To
you. So my final thoughts are, I just think it's really cool. For me, I love all magical worlds. It was super cool to try to marry the two. I'll say try, because ultimately that's not my decision. So let's not pretend like they don't exist together, but they can exist together. And this is just one way of imagining how they might exist together, and I do hope people like it.